This subject is entitled Social Permaculture. Social permaculture means everything that is included in a rich life. In other words, to practice social permaculture, you cannot have negative externalities, which is a common feature of modern-day industrial economics. A lot of things are not taken account of. They're called social marginal costs, or otherwise known as negative externalities. They can be beyond mere social marginal costs because they can be ecological costs, but of course the ultimate upshot of that is a social calamity. If the ecology has been devastated by our negative externalities, then so has our social life, so is our human life. So what we're really coming down to is that social permaculture has to be the new economics. It's not capitalism, it's not socialism, it's not communism, it's social permaculture. This is the new economics, this is the new political economy, and it really means zero waste, net benefit to the planet, such that cities actually are performing ecosystem goods and services like carbon sinks. The buildings have to actually be taking carbon out of the atmosphere, not putting carbon into it. The cars cannot be adding pollution to the environment. They'll have to actually be processing pollution, or at the very least producing zero waste, zero effluent, and the bulk of our foods will have to be grown within 50 miles of every settlement, because unless the free energy of the universe can be tapped, which we've discussed in other areas, there will be resource limitations. I mean, this planet has not quite shifted to the free energy paradigm where there are no physical limitations because we can overcome them with infinitely powered energy machines. That may come someday. That may be our ultimate future. But right now, the planet is a limited resource base that has to be tended much more rigorously, and not necessarily with austerity, but certainly with reinvestment. Okay, so social permaculture means reinvesting in the natural systems that will go back to work for humankind, underpinning our economy with more and more and more goods and services from the ecosphere. Therefore, we don't have to worry that much about occasionally wanting to take a nice fat tree from this forest or that forest if we wanted to have some precious paneling for our new boardroom or whatever. If you can't salvage it from some other office that's being dismantled on the other side of the world, and I know companies that do this, by the way, they get all sorts of salvaged fine hard woods and resell them. But if you cannot reinvest in the forests of the world, then why are you depleting them? Why are they being taken away from future generations? Because not only are they losing the pleasure and the conscious connection that comes from forests, but they're losing the ecosystem goods and services. They're losing not only beauty, not only spiritual resources, but they're losing atmosphere processor power. That's what the forests of the world are. They're losing groundwater recharge power. That's what forests are. They're losing perhaps the biodiversity associated with the habitats that form in forests. I recently saw the Pacific yew tree in its native environment out in Josephine County, Southern Oregon. This tree is known to have anti-cancer properties, and there it was, a pharmacy growing in the middle of dense undergrowth underneath a canopy of Douglas fir and madrone. Those services cannot be replaced by scientism and technology dependence. Those services belong to everyone, and therefore are part of the commons, and therefore are not for sale, and nor may they be destroyed for short-term gain. For one simple reason: there is a law in the universe that is sacrosanct and therefore holy, which is called Usufruct. And usufructory rights are a part of common law. Usufructory rights, the use of a thing that is fruitful within the bounds of its fruitfulness, is guaranteed to certain people, like First Nations, for instance. They are supposed to be able to have usufructory rights over their reservations. The minerals and everything there are pretty much theirs. That's a good thing. Now, what such rights, what are the equivalent rights that pertain to all of us? Imagine the entire United States as a reservation. Okay? What are the commons? Where can you go to get free resources without paying anybody or getting charged a license fee or whatever? I mean, if a self-organizing collective wishing to take advantage of a commons or common pool resource chooses to have fees amongst themselves so that there's an oversight committee that is funded to make sure that the commons is not abused, that's one thing. But if a public or a private entity tries to come in, they will destroy the commons, usually through either neglect or overuse, or they won't enforce free riding violations where people overuse. All manner of things can happen. This is going back to my pedigree in environmental science. But what I'm trying to say is, now's the time to actually restore access to the commons. That's part of social permaculture too. In fact, it's a cornerstone. Getting away from the monetary equivalency of ecosystem goods and services, because there is no monetary equivalency, since they have almost perpetual benefit to future generations by being left in place. That's one thing. But also, as I said before, just simply reestablishing access to the commons. This is one of the core principles of social permaculture. And finally, it is also to remove all barriers to access to the basic goods and services that people need. So in other words, if you want to have a pay-to-play, commerce-based society in parallel with a social permaculture design model, that's fine, but it may not dominate. There must always be a place to go when you fall through the cracks over here. Okay, look at it as the horizontal and the vertical axes of the economy. We are needing much more horizontal than we're needing vertical these days, and that means equity, that means access, that means fairness, justice, resilience, that means people-centered development in the name of social permaculture and Usufruct. Aho. Amen. Ashe. Let it be.